If you could choose between going to class or plopping down on your couch to watch TV, 99% of us would pick the latter. That's because we all love a good story. Stories have the power to transport us to other worlds, put us in other people's shoes, and take us on adventures. Today, my point is, if stories aren't a part of your language practice, you're missing out. I'm delving into 5 aspects of stories that make them so incredibly effective at helping us learn languages. I want to clear one thing up right away. By stories, I don't just mean fairy tales or even novels. Stories can take so many different forms. Storytelling is about as old as language itself. Some of the first stories were cave drawings created over 30,000 years ago. Today, stories can be told through media like comic books or newspaper articles. The art of oral storytelling is also a tradition that dates back many, many years, but now it takes the form of movies, TV shows, and podcasts, for example. Even some video games tell stories. And this is the first point I want to make. Stories are an accessible and abundant learning resource. There are stories in every language and in every genre, and you're free to pick whatever format you enjoy most. So if you're a language learner, there's a story out there for you. At the end of the video, I'll tell you about one in particular that you're gonna love, especially if you've struggled to find stories that suit your learning needs in the past. As a kid, I remember staying up until the wee hours of the night, way past my bedtime, under my blankets with my flashlight and the latest Harry Potter book, because I literally couldn't put it down. And I know I'm not the only one who has binged an entire TV series in just a day or two because I've gotten so sucked into the plot. Squid Game, anyone? When you're entertained, you'll hardly realize you're practicing because you're more concerned about how the characters are going to get out of the predicament they're in, or whether those two who have insane chemistry will finally admit they love each other already. TV series and other serial-type stories like comics, podcasts, and audio series are especially great for learners because they keep you coming back every week. Consistency is incredibly important for language practice. So when you get hooked on a story that releases a new chapter or episode on a regular basis, it's a pretty good guarantee that you'll stick with your language practice. Like I said, reading, watching, or listening to stories is something we already do in our native language. So it's just a matter of tweaking these habits to include our target language. Adjusting an existing habit, like listening to a podcast on your commute or reading a chapter before bed, is easier than creating an entirely new habit, which takes about 30 days of consistent practice. First, stories expose us to new vocabulary, grammar, and syntax in a way that is natural, yet that gives us plenty of context to help us understand it, and repetition so that we can begin to remember it. When you discover a new sentence structure or turn a phrase by yourself, you're much more likely to retain it than if you had simply read about it in a grammar handbook. This intuitive process of picking up new syntax or looking for patterns and verb endings while you're reading or listening, and then trying them out yourself, works your critical thinking skills and helps you remember them better. And the fact that they're linked to characters and a plot that you probably care about, rather than isolated examples from a textbook that have no other meaning to you, also reinforces your understanding. What are the ingredients you need to effectively memorize vocabulary? Well, we've already talked about 2 of them that stories provide. Context, which teaches us how a particular word can be used naturally and connects it to the words around it, and repetition or consistency. If you want to memorize a word for the long haul, you can't just read it or hear it once and expect to remember it. In stories, key words and phrases are repeated several times and in different situations. This helps you memorize them more quickly, though ideally you still need to supplement this with another vocabulary memorization tool. But stories also often incorporate 4 other memory techniques that reinforce the associations our brain makes when it stores and later recalls a new word: emotion, exaggeration, movement, and visualization, or mental images, which are all very powerful for effective memorization. Good storytellers suck their audience in with emotion, exaggerate to make their story more memorable, advance the plot with movement, and give us detailed descriptions to help us create mental pictures, or create them for us in the case of movies and TV. Now you know the 5 main benefits of learning a language with stories. Nonetheless, if you're a beginner, you may be facing a huge issue: finding stories that are suitable for your level and not babyish. If you like to read stories, look for material written for language learners. Graded texts are often simplified versions of popular novels. To give you an example, if you're a complete beginner, you can find an A1 level version of a Sherlock Holmes book or Dracula, for example. You'll have a bigger problem if you want to use TV series, which are often just too difficult for beginners and false beginners. So it's very hard to find good stories to watch and/or listen to when you're starting to learn a language. That's why we created MOSASERIES. It's an audio course based on a story, which incorporates new vocabulary and structures little by little, and focuses on building up your listening comprehension skills. So it's easy at the beginning, and it gradually becomes more and more difficult. So even beginners can experience the incredible power of stories for language learning. And it's not just a story, it's also a complete language learning method. So it tells you exactly what you need to focus on, and it guides you in such a way that you can learn the language of your choice and enjoy the thrill of the journey. It has something for everyone: mystery, humor, and even a little romance. The MosaLingua team spent over 2 years developing this story to be like a stepping stone, to help learners reach an intermediate level and give them access to even more stories. There's a link with more information in the description. I hope you'll check it out and experience firsthand all of the benefits of stories and storytelling that I just talked about. In any case, I really encourage you to use stories to improve your language skills. It's fun, useful, and effective, so give it a try. And before you go, drop me a comment to let me know what stories you're hooked on right now. Happy learning!
If you learned something new from this video, give it a thumbs up. Then, hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. Have a look around our channel for more hacks and tips. And if you're watching on another social media platform, like or follow our page. See you next time.